Welcome to Frankly Speaking Hurricanes Football with your host, Frank Mazdu. Today we're going to talk about an interesting topic. We're going to talk about Alabama's strengths and weaknesses from a fan at JanceSports, an Alabama fan, and he's going to talk about their strengths and weaknesses, and we're going to focus in on what he believes to be one of their weaknesses, which is their secondary. Now, granted, we haven't had a tremendous wide receiver corps. Harley's been the best, and he's been extremely good, and we've got a good receiver in Will Mallory, but the drop-off with Wiggins is large. Pope has been largely inconsistent. So we have basically a lot of new components, a lot of new pieces with a lot of freshmen. We've also got a lot of redshirt freshmen that are coming in that are going to challenge for spots. So we don't know exactly how the wide receiver corps is going to look. I do know that we've seen a lot of drop balls in practice. The X-Man in the slot looks good, but we've seen a lot of inconsistencies. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you to hit the like button or subscribe button if you like our videos. Share them with whoever you can, family and friends. This may be the Achilles heel for Alabama. This is important, and you're going to hear it right from a really good fan, a YouTube blogger who talks about Alabama, and I'm going to put him on here just in a second. So let's hear what he's got to say.
They do every single year, right? Every single time, these polls, these projections always rate Alabama extremely high. Why? Because they have the ability to reload every single year, despite losing 9 or 10 guys every year. Nick Saban has found a way to reload. But sometimes it doesn't always work for Alabama as far as winning national titles. We all know they can find success. They can compete for SEC championships or division crowns, but we have seen in years where there were certain weaknesses that we thought that Alabama could cover up, and it ended up biting them in the ass. I'll give you a perfect example. The 2019 season, Alabama's linebacking core bit them in the ass. We all know Dylan Moses and Joshua Hamilton. Those guys were hurt. And then you had to put Christian Harris and Shane Lee, two inside linebackers that were freshmen. One that never even played the linebacking position. The other one that was just not ready. He was too short, buff as hell, but too short. Doesn't have the greatest lateral quickness, and just does not have the greatest understanding of the defense. Again, he's young, but it bit them in the ass in a lot of the big games, including also the defensive line. A lot of young true freshmen. You had like 3 or 4 true freshmen playing that defensive line. So inexperience can kill Alabama, not through one game, but we have seen it throughout the entire season, especially throughout that 2019 campaign, where it definitely bit them in the ass against stronger competition. The one area that really worries me about Alabama going into the 2021 season is their secondary. The offensive line, you can definitely make an argument, even though Alabama has always found success there, despite how many losses. We've seen them lose literally an entire branch of five starters, and they can still replace and do good. But the secondary worries me because we haven't seen a dominant Alabama secondary probably since maybe the closest that we've seen was probably 2011. Again, in this type of era where the modern offense, where the passing game rules supreme, it's hard to not allow a 300 or 400 yard performance. And even in 2016, where Alabama was extremely dominant on defense, we saw the Chad Kelly, Deshaun Watson. We saw those games where the secondary just did not have a good day. It was just schematics. And crap happens. But yeah, Alabama's secondary hasn't been the most dominant since the early stages of the Nick Saban era. You lose Pat Surtain. You lose an all NCAA corner in Patrick Surtain to the NFL draft. That's a big loss, big chunk. Josh Jobe is listed right now as your number 1 cornerback, and I've been a guy that I'm not too fond on Jobe. I'm sorry. I'm one of those guys that is not. I've seen way too much film on him. People love Josh Jobe because they love his size. He's your ideal Alabama corner. That's 6'1", 190 pounds, big physical corner that can definitely play strong in the running game. But I've seen this dude struggle against quicker dudes. I've seen this dude struggle against even stronger dudes when he's trying to press. And a lot of the times I've seen this dude on single man-to-man coverage with no safety, to just literally leave Job on the island. I've seen this dude get beat way too many damn times, and I'm actually shocked that not a lot of people game plan around getting Josh Job. Maybe.
Okay, he makes an interesting point. Josh Jobe, the corner, and losing Pat Surtain, who Miami was in a recruiting battle with Alabama. We never really had a chance. He was going to Alabama, but losing him to the NFL, and I believe he was a first-round pick, and then having Josh Jobe, well, that's a wake-up call. If we're listening, that's something that we should try and match up with Rambo and try and match up with Smith, who has tremendous speed and agility. So let's make a note of that to look at Josh Jobe. Let's continue.
The help, maybe, again, Passer 10, he was left on the island a lot. Maybe that extra help in the secondary was there to cover Josh Jobe's side. But I've seen way too much of Josh Jobe from last year, and then including the spring game, where I'm seeing guys like Joshua Liner, walk-on freshman, beat you, destroy you on one-on-one matchups. And then I'm watching Trayshawn Holden in the spring game, including Igea Hall. These guys are torturing you. And it's not like it's zone coverage. This is man-to-man. This is single man-to-man coverage. And I'm watching horrible technique. I'm watching horrible footwork. What in the hell is going on? But enough about Josh Jobe, because Josh Jobe I guess you can say he's a solid number 2. He's just not number 1 material. So who do you have that could be your number 1 material? Is it JaQuincy McKinstry? I mean, JaQuincy McKinstry had a solid, we've heard so much good about JaQuincy against Kool-Aid. We've heard so much good about him. Phenomenal spring. He's having a great summer workout. Nothing but positive things. But he's a true freshman, and we just don't have that much film on him. So he is still a mystery. Is it Jalen Armour-Davis, a guy that's that was hyped, 2 or 3 years ago, that he was going to be the number 1 corner there? Injuries have been plaguing him, and then he was more of a special teams player last year. We saw a glimpse in spring, but not too much film on him. Is it Marcus Banks? We don't know about Marcus Banks. I don't even know. Did he even compete in the spring game? Ronald Williams transferred. We saw Brandon Turnage transferred. Kyrie Jackson, he just arrived there. So again, Kyrie Jackson, a highly touted JUCO prospect. That's one of the best, JUCO corners. Now this is his first year in Tuscaloosa. Great size at 6'3", 200 pounds. Very physical corner. A guy that will lay the boom on anybody. We just don't know. So a lot of those outside cornerback positions are mysteries. We don't know. And that could be a good thing, and sometimes that can be a bad thing, because the good thing is you don't have too much film on those cornerbacks, maybe besides Josh Jobe. The bad thing is that, is there a particular reason why we didn't see these guys get that much playing time, maybe besides Kool-Aid and Kyrie, right? Is it because Pat Surtain and the rest of those guys were just that damn good, or was it because these players weren't ready for the moment? And are they going to be ready for that moment in week 1? Again, this is not an Alabama secondary that just absolutely gets everybody up to speed and that they can dominate. This is a secondary that's good enough where the front 7 can really dominate, but we really haven't seen the secondary completely dominate, like we've seen in the past. And that, again, this is the modern era of offense. But just like the modern day era of offense, there's going to be a lot of dangerous teams that could take advantage of Alabama's inexperience, right? Because with that inexperience, right, in that youth there's communication. So what's the chemistry what's the chemistry like for those guys? If these guys get left in the island, can they handle that type of pressure? Because when you get left alone in an island, there's a lot of pressure. And it takes a man with balls to play on an island with no safety help. It takes balls. So who's going to step up and be that number 1 corner? That is something that honestly we need to find out. And this is why the Miami game makes me nervous, because it's a great test to see if Alabama can handle that pressure. But at the same time, when you're dealing with the Miami Hurricanes receiving core, which arguably going into the 2021 season is going to have one of the best receiving cores in all of college football, with Marvin Mims and Mallory at the tight end position. We all know Alabama with the tight ends. Oh God, I mean, tight ends have tortured Alabama's secondary, including their linebacking position, for years.
Okay, this is important. This is important. Again, in our previous videos, we talked about the importance of Will Mallory and Elijah Arroyo. If Elijah Arroyo can get up to speed and can learn the playbook so that he's ready to attack day one at Alabama, and we can bring him in and out, and he can spell Mallory, because he's big enough that we don't lose anything as far as the ability to block, hopefully. But if we put him in a 2 tight end set, he could really threaten those linebackers and those DBs. So let's pay more close attention to what this gentleman is talking about here, about the tight ends. I suspect that the tight ends in the backside of the backfield could be a problem for Alabama. I'm not saying they will be, but if there's a weakness, it should be in the middle of that field, and it should be with their linebackers covering backside of the backfield, and their DBs and their safeties covering tight ends. That could be an issue. Let's hear what he has to say.
But then you have Mark Pope, and then you have there's another guy too, I forgot. And then you have the transfer in Charleston Rambo from Oklahoma, who we all know is a phenomenal speed, a guy that's a phenomenal vertical threat. So it's a great test, because if you can do good against those guys, then there's hope against better receiving cores as far as SEC competition. There's confidence there. There's hope that the secondary can be good, But just like how we saw last year, this secondary got torched last year in the early part of the season. It wasn't until late in the season or it was until like maybe midway or maybe after that Georgia game, that's when you saw the secondary start to get better. But even then, the Florida game happened where they got absolutely manhandled. So this is not an invincible secondary. It's a very inexperienced secondary, but tons and tons of talent to groom. I am, however, worried about the Miami game. I don't think Alabama's losing to Miami, but I'm worried about that Miami game because of the amount of experience that they have, especially with the amount of coaching staff and the amount of personnel that they have at their receiving core with the tight end. I'm scared of the tight end. And then De'Aaron King is no scrub at the quarterback position as well. I know he's been there for a million years, but we all know, guys, that he's extremely experienced at that quarterback position, and I guarantee you, Miami, Manny Diaz, they're gonna have a game plan to test out this young secondary, this inexperienced secondary. And maybe, in fact, I can see a lot of teams. I can see Lane Kiffin. I can see Jimbo Fisher and A&M. They're playing Alabama earlier on for the first time in I don't know how long. We can see a lot of teams try to take advantage of the weakness of what it seems to be the weakness of the team going into.
Okay, so to get to the gist of it, he's talking about basically the secondary. And granted, I get it. I understand it. There's still a very good secondary. And the reason I say that is because despite what he's saying, there's talent. Now, it may not be cohesive. There may be miscommunications. There may be raw talent that's maybe not developed. But it's still Alabama. And yes, Charleston Rambo is a tremendous player. And yes, Harley, you've got two legit great receivers, in my opinion, very good to great receivers in those two. What we've learned is that Alabama has some vulnerability in the secondary and possibly in the linebacker core. Their defensive line is strong. We've also learned that Miami has a lot of raw talent at the wide receiver core, and they've got some speed. They've upgraded both size and speed, hands and agility. We've got players with good, strong hands. There's the blend of veteran and youth. The youth, much more talented than most of the veterans on the team, if not all of them. So upcoming to the Alabama game, Miami's got to focus on making sure that there are fewer balls hitting the ground in those passing drills and that they're in rhythm, and make sure that they settle on their top 6 wide receivers, or hopefully the top 8. That they have enough receivers that they feel comfortable enough they can rotate them into the system. The other thing that we'll touch later is the running backs. The running backs are an issue as well, and we've got to settle on a running back. I think that the Rooster is probably going to be the one. Probably with Chaney. Harris will be in and out. but I think that's what we're going to see. So with that being said, I want to thank you for taking time to view these videos, and let's continue to cheer our team.